Controversy is raging as the teachers' union continues their fight to eliminate province-wide testing in reading, writing, and math from BC's elementary schools. But if successful, this might hurt kids' education. What's the real purpose behind their decade-long crusade? Let's find out and examine their claims in further detail.
In grade 4 and again in grade 7, almost all kids in BC are expected to write the Foundation Skills Assessments, or FSAs for short. 6 exams totaling about 9 hours of testing over 7.5 years. Shouldn't be a big deal, right? But here's the rub for the teachers' union. The Fraser Institute uses the test information to create school report cards. Hundreds of thousands of parents and educators read these to monitor academic performance at their own schools, compare results to other schools, and use the differences to improve learning. But the union doesn't want the bad news about schools that are performing poorly or whose results are declining to be made public. So now we understand the union's motives around creating a campaign to eliminate the tests. They've even gone to the extent of sending propaganda home with children, as well as actively encouraging the teachers to stop administering the tests.
To understand the debate they've started, we went to the front lines and interviewed Carolyn Krause, a retired principal from Grandview Elementary.
Grandview was always just about number one or number 2 on the list, meaning the neediest school. But at least 36% of the students, 36 to 40% of the students were either designated special needs or they were on someone's caseload. And we found that once we really started focusing on the academics and creating other programs to make sure that students were safe and that they had productive things to do after school, then we began to see a turnaround.
And what does she credit for initiating this turnaround?
Well, one of the first things that happened when I became principal was that the Fraser Institute's rankings of schools came out. Actually, I think it was a wake-up call for a lot of people.
So let's bust some of the myths promoted by the union about standardized testing. Myth 1. FSAs focus only on reading, writing, and math, ignoring other important areas of education.
We do have to focus on literacy in particular, because if children can't read, then they're going to struggle all during school. That doesn't mean that there's not time left over to do other things.
Myth 2. Teachers are a better judge of performance than FSAs are.
So the teachers spend 5 hours a day for 10 months out of the year with their students, and so they absolutely know their students. But it's information. It's outside, it's objective information that helps students and parents and teachers come together and have a discussion about what's working, what's not working. It's just one more element in the whole realm of assessment.
Myth 3. FSAs serve no useful purpose.
I believe that FSAs do help students, parents, and teachers. I had that experience myself at Grandview, using them to provide this information to parents about where the school was in terms of that particular assessment tool and what we could do about it, how we could come together and plan and use it as part of our school planning.
Myth 4. FSAs compare schools unfairly.
I don't like the idea of comparing York House, where I started my career, with Grandview, because I know the difference. To compare Grandview to McDonald or to the other inner city schools, it's useful.
Myth 5. FSAs make poor performing kids and schools feel like losers.
It was and still is an inner city school. And so there's already a level of demoralization that exists in some inner city schools. But if you take that as a challenge and then help the school to move forward, at that point it just develops student self-esteem and it makes teachers become even more proud of the successes that they have.
Myth 6. FSAs waste valuable classroom time.
FSAs really take a small percentage of classroom time. If you consider the fact that children are in school for 13 years and FSAs only take place over a 4-week period, and I think it's only about 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours altogether, at grade 4 and at grade 7, we're not talking about a lot of time.
Myth 7. FSAs create stress for the kids that interfere with learning.
I never saw a student at Grandview really experience extreme stress over having to do the FSA exams. I think only if the people who are giving the tests don't believe in them and are encouraged to not to give them. I think that that's what creates the stress.
Myth 8. FSAs rob financial resources from the classroom.
It is a very insignificant amount in terms of the information that we learn about the individual students and what we can do with that information that we wouldn't have otherwise.
Myth 9. FSAs don't need to be done in all schools. They could be random.
I don't know what information as a school principal or as a parent or as a student that would give me. The random sampling doesn't give you the information, and it's the only external assessment tool that we have that actually gives us information about how Aboriginal students are doing, how ESL students are doing, and how boys and girls are doing. And that is information that would be very difficult for each school to do individually.
So now we know education in BC is better with FSA testing. In fact, last year, 70% of parents polled said that they support the BC Ministry of Education's current program of testing. If you're amongst those, please make your support known. It's not just the teachers' union who should have a voice.
You can sign up for our Facebook group on FSA myths and also check out our other videos on school report cards at fraserinstitute.org. There, you can also find report cards on the schools in your area.
I'm Leah Costello. Thanks for tuning in.